After the Black Death loosened its grip on Europe, people stepped into a world that felt haunting and unfamiliar. The air carried the memory of suffering, and every street corner whispered stories of those who never returned. Entire neighborhoods stood half-empty, fields were overgrown, and the wooden doors of abandoned homes hung open like silent reminders of families that once lived, breathed, laughed, and vanished. The world felt slower and heavier, as if time itself had been wounded and was trying to find its rhythm again. Life after the plague did not simply continue, it restarted like a weak flame trying to rise against the cold. People looked around and realized everything had changed. The social order, the way they worked, the way they viewed life, and even the way they looked at each other before the plague. The poor lived under the weight of landlords and masters. But now the fields were empty, the workshops were silent, and there were not enough hands to rebuild everything. This gave ordinary people a strange new power. They never imagined they could have. Suddenly workers could demand better pay and better treatment, and many landowners agreed just to keep their farms alive. It was the first time in generations that the lower classes felt the ground shift beneath their feet in their favor. Families who survived felt a mixture of guilt and gratitude. Some looked at their empty tables and wondered why they had lived while others had died, but at the same time, they felt a deep hunger to rebuild, to plant seeds, to bring life back to the land. People married young, hoping to restore their families. Farmers returned to the soil merchants, reopened their shops, and travelers slowly filled the roads again, carrying goods, stories, hope, and sometimes fear that the plague might return any moment. Even when life began to grow again, fear stayed like a shadow following people everywhere. Every fever, every sneeze, every unexpected sickness reminded them of the nightmare they had lived. Through churches were filled from morning to night. Some prayed for protection, some thanked the heavens for survival, some begged for the strength to move forward. The belief that the plague was punishment from above still shaped the thoughts of many, and people tried to live more humbly, hoping to avoid another wave of divine anger. Still, the world pushed forward. Cities grew louder, markets returned with new energy, blacksmiths hammered iron, bakers filled streets with the smell of fresh bread, and children ran through the same alleys that once echoed with silence. Trade routes reopened, and with them came new ideas, new art, new ways of thinking. People began questioning old traditions that had controlled their lives for centuries. They started reading more. They began exploring science, medicine, and the nature of disease, hoping to understand what had happened to them. The seeds of a new age were quietly taking root in the ashes of the old world. The plague had created a strange kind of opportunity land that once belonged to wealthy nobles, suddenly became available because there were not enough heirs. Many poor families were able to buy or inherit farms for the first time. The balance of power shifted, and society began transforming in ways no one expected. Even kings and rulers had to adjust their laws, because the world no longer followed the old rules. People had tasted freedom, and they were not willing to let it go. Artists and writers changed too. Paintings became darker, yet strangely beautiful, filled with images of life and death standing side by side. People wrote poems about loss and rebirth. They carved symbols of time, fate, and human fragility, as if they wanted to remind future generations of what they had survived. The plague reshaped the imagination of an entire era. It taught people that life was precious, brief, unpredictable, and worth clinging to with every breath. Slowly, life settled into a new rhythm. Families rebuilt their homes. Children grew up hearing stories of the dark years and how their parents survived. Fields turned green again. Markets filled with noise, and the world found its color piece by piece. People learned to celebrate again. Festivals returned, music filled the evenings, weddings became moments of hope, and communities found strength by standing together against memories that once broke them. Though the Black Death had taken millions, it also pushed humanity into a new chapter. People became stronger, wiser, more aware of their worth. They rebuilt their world, not the same as before, but better shaped by loss, shaped by courage, shaped by the simple truth that even the darkest nights eventually give way to a new dawn. And from the ruins of one of history's greatest tragedies, life rose again, carried by the hands of people who refused to let the past define their future.